Gypsies have, for centuries, been branded as outsiders. Wherever they've traveled, people hated and envied them. Gypsies have refused to conform to other people's values. They've remained separate, different. Who they are and where they came from has stayed a closely guarded secret amongst the gypsies themselves for generations. In Britain today, they're a mixture of travellers, tinkers and Romanys. Romanys are the original gypsies. They arrived in Europe by the early 12th century with their tribal trades, language and customs. There aren't many Romanys left in Britain now. They've intermarried and lost many of the links with their past. But there are some 10 million gypsies around the world, and to find out who they are and where they came from, we took the Romani Trail, which led us back through every country of Europe. It took us through North Africa and Asia and into India, their original homeland. We discovered tribes of gypsies still travelling in northwest India. While others migrated around the world, these nomadic people have hardly changed over centuries. They pitch their homes where need or fancy takes them. Many are low caste or untouchables who can find no other place in Indian society. This is the birthplace of the culture that gypsies have preserved in secret in every country where they've since settled. Their ritual washing and cleanliness is based in Hindu custom. The Hindu religion is also at the heart of gypsy superstitions. The goddess Kali travelled with them and is still alive in their myths and legends today. The Romani language is based in the Hindi dialects of North India. It's still spoken by gypsies everywhere. Having no written history, music and song have kept their culture alive. Wherever they travel and whatever they do, music has a special place in the life of gypsies. There are two sorts of gypsy music, a public sort, where they perform for money, and a very different private sort, never seen by outsiders, like their puppet shows, a family tradition handed down from father to child. Among themselves, they love to send up the pretensions of the society they live outside, like the rich ladies of Rajasthan. After making fun of the Maharaja of Jodhpur, they go and entertain him in his palace. From the Maharaja's palaces, the gypsy entertainers travelled north. The Persian poet Ferdowsi described how almost 1,000 years ago, a prince of the Sasint dynasty brought gypsy musicians from India to entertain him in the Persian courts. There were more migrations out of India in search of work or to escape the many famines, wars, and hardships. Over centuries, they travelled north through Afghanistan and Persia. Living as nomads, they still preserved their language and music. Their ways divided. Some tribes moved up into Europe, others branched off through the Holy Lands and down to Egypt. We followed the Romani Trail, which took us down the River Nile in search of the gypsies of Egypt. For centuries, they've remained undiscovered, unknown to the Egyptians themselves. But on the banks of the Nile, near the town of Luxor, we found them, living beside the temples that the pharaohs built for the sun god Amun-Ra. They live on the outskirts of town, as gypsies do everywhere. The story of their unique migration has been passed by word of mouth from father to son. Joseph Mazen is head of the gypsy tribe in Luxor and is the keeper of his people's history.
قبيلة من كردستان. القبيلة بتاعتنا جات من كردستان.
Our tribe originally came from Kurdistan. Its name was Nawar al-Hamamsha, and it was called Nawar because of its founder's name. Nawar is the name that applies to all our people here. From Kurdistan, we descended to Egypt many generations ago, having been cast out of our homelands because of our evil deeds and bad reputation. For in truth, we would steal and plunder, and some of us were highway robbers too. We lived outside society, and we kept alive our own traditions and our own language. But we were punished and driven out of Kurdistan and Iran, where our forefathers were born. In the beginning, we took after our ancestors, but we had to pay for that, as the people were against us. In order to settle in Luxor, we encouraged our daughters to dance and our sons to become musicians, so that would become accepted by the locals. And we invaded their hearts and their minds by our arts.
HEREDIA is one of the 3 daughters of Joseph Mazen, who became a dancer. Being from the tribe of Nawar, or Gypsy, she's an outsider from her community. The youngest daughter is RACHMAN, with whom respectable people don't want to be seen walking, let alone talking. The oldest of the 3 is Soat Mazen. Refused a place in polite society, Soat became the local prostitute. To try and gain some semblance of respectability, she and her sisters became professional dancers.
The only time I wish I wasn't a dancer is when a man of another tribe falls in love with me or one of my sisters. His family would fight a war to stop him marrying a Ghaziya, a girl of bad reputation. His family would say, "How can you do such a thing to us? How could you marry a daughter of Mazen, a dancer and a singer, a girl who performs in front of others, and from the tribe of Nawar?" Then such a marriage becomes impossible. That's what hurts and makes me sometimes wish I wasn't a dancer. They call us by the name Ghaziya. To them, it's a dirty word, but to us it means that we invade their hearts with our dance and in any other way they want.
ونسحب بعض بدون ما حد يشعر وبنتغلب.
We don't care what they say about us, because at the end of the day, we give them their money's worth and they get what they are after.
وبطريقتنا احنا الخاصة بنتغلب على كل ده.
The Muzzin family, over many generations, spread across the countryside of Upper Egypt. Some of the poorest relatives live in the outskirts of the town Kus, where they're among the last people to preserve the great tradition of the epic ballad, which is fast dying out in Egypt. Said Dawi is a poet. He's passing on to his son the art of the gypsy epic singer. The story is of Abu Zaid, a dark gypsy hero with a special place in Arab culture. Said Dawi is one of the last remaining teachers of the ancient ballad.
البقال وللعرب بركات خط عليها القد وقالها على البركات.
Said Dawi is a poor and unknown poet, destined to remain in his village. But one member of his tribe broke with his past and went to Cairo. He became a star of stage and screen, perhaps the most popular folk entertainer in the whole Arab world. His name is Mitkyle. Young girls climb on stage just to be seen near Mitkyle.
I was born near the temple of Karnak, like the rest of my family who were poor. One day, I was told an important group of guests had come all the way from Cairo and to hear me play. Well, they heard me play and brought me to Cairo. That was my lucky day.
After taking Cairo by storm, Mikhail traveled the world. In Paris, he was signed up as a star in French porno films. On his return to Cairo, he could boast no less than 9 wives and 14 children. Despite his fame, Mikhail hasn't lost touch with other poorer gypsies. The jugglers of old Cairo are called Nakrazan. They make their living from the streets, as gypsies have for centuries since they left India. Though Mikhail and his family mix with poorer gypsies in Old Cairo, there are certain places where they'd never dare to go. Behind the city railway lines is the infamous district of El Hashish. It's a ghetto of the drug dealers and criminals of Cairo. Many gypsies have to live here with their families, as they too are classed as undesirables. On certain days, gypsies, who are never usually seen outside their ghetto areas, make their way into the local markets. They've come to make money by performing the traditional arts that gypsies carried with them on their long migrations, hidden from the eyes of the law by the bustle of the market. The tattooist is one of Mikhail's brothers, continuing the gypsy trade his fathers brought from India. He's tattooing a new wife on top of the old. Customers can select the design they want from a surprising variety. Gypsies dance to the same two-sided drum and pipes that their nomadic forefathers brought from Rajasthan. The dancing girls are called khawazis, meaning invaders of the heart. They're a different tribe from the dancers we found in Luxor. They're believed to have entered Europe with invading armies from the Turkish Empire. They're belly dancing in the markets like their great-grandmothers did. Puppet shows, like Punch and Judy, were carried through the world by gypsies. They do the same in England today. Their art began in India and became a part of every society they mixed with, often mocking other people's ways of life. They're discussing the virtues of wife-beating, Egyptian style. The fortune tellers performing her traditional role of telling people what they want to hear and then charging them for it. So when magic or supernatural powers are called for, the Islamic community often turns to the gypsy. This procession in Old Cairo is leading to an exorcism. Gypsy musicians have been employed to chase the devil from an Egyptian girl who's suffering from an illness that modern medicine can't diagnose. This public parade is followed by the most secret of ceremonies. Before entering her home for the exorcism, the girl is ritually cleansed. A bird is sacrificed to the devil. The exorcism begins as the gypsies try to identify the devil causing the girl's illness. They do this by dressing her in costumes and playing the music of different lands. If and when she falls into trance, they will have found the nationality of the devil and can banish him. First, they try an Arabian costume. As she hasn't fallen into trance, they change the rhythm. To attract the devil by whetting his appetite, they add some live chickens. The devil still hasn't responded, so they change her costume for a Moroccan one. Next, they try a Tunisian cape. As the girl begins to react to the faster rhythms, the musicians know they've caught the devil. By now, the gypsies have performed a sort of spiritual journey through the costumes and music of the lands of their ancient migrations to and from Cairo. Outside the city, near the oasis of Fayoum, are the tribes of nomadic gypsies who still travel through Africa, taking their music with them. These are total outcasts, neither speaking the local language nor following the Islamic faith. To escape the persecution that still follows them, they travel today in the company of other nomads, following the routes of their original migrations, but disguising their identity for fear of persecution in new lands. If gypsies did in fact take a North African route towards Spain, little evidence has been found, apart from a few isolated communities on the way. Some people deny there ever was such a migration. They claim that gypsies entered Spain not from Africa in the south, but from France in the north. Others think they entered from both directions. we found some of the original settlements near Granada, hidden in the hillsides of Andalusia. In the caves of Guadix, the most primitive gypsy flamenco still survives. The Andalusian gypsies definitely believe they migrated here from Egypt, and it's a common theme in their music. The earliest type of unaccompanied flamenco is very Arabic in flavor, much like the prayer chants of Islam. An ancient song of the gypsy migrations into Spain is sung by Pepe Albayzín. Beneath the Moorish palace of the Alhambra in Granada lives another of Spain's gypsy communities. The caves of the Sacromonte have housed some families since the 15th century. This must be the only place in the world that gypsies have turned themselves into a tourist trade, relentlessly aimed at the pockets of foreigners. Coach trippers coming to visit the gypsies get more than they bargained for. But gypsy life is full of contradictions here, for the Sacromonte also hides the most intimate and ancient ways of gypsy living. In their cave, the Cortez family are holding a very private fiesta that will last them through the night. Flamenco is a mixture of the Moorish, the Andalusian, and the gypsy. And in a family gathering like this, it takes on a very special quality. The most Arabic of all flamenco music is the zambra. It was born in these caves. One of the greatest gypsy dancers, La Mariquilla, leads off. To the eldest son's accompaniment, all the family dance in their turn. final Zambra is left to Grandma. Not all Granada's gypsies live in caves, but those who left to try a new life in apartment blocks have found it hard to adapt. Many have kept their semi-nomadic lifestyle, taking their livestock with them. There was little attempt by the government to re-educate those who were rehoused. So the gypsies of Granada turned to self-help.
4 por 7, 28 y 2 que nos llevamos, 35.900.
Their classes are organized by Miguel Haggerty, a part Spanish, part Irish gypsy.
This is a very poor neighborhood, very poor part of Granada, and the class essentially is teaching these people to count, to multiply, to add, subtract, and to read and to write, things that are necessary to if not integrate ourselves completely into the Gurja, into the non-gypsy society, to at least handle ourselves with more ease. The gypsies have always been accepted as, say, a folkloric sort of thing and taken advantage of here in Andalusia. But here are the very real problems, the day-to-day problems. Not all gypsies can sing, can dance, and can play the guitar. The families are very large, and these are the main problems. Unemployment and a cultural rejection on our part and on mostly their part, I think. Little by little, things are coming out again, certain prejudices. And I think this happens whenever there's an economic crisis. You look for a scapegoat. And the gypsies, we've always been scapegoats in every society. As in all gypsy societies, the gypsy minority here in Spain has music as the very first, most important element, as a binding factor from all the gypsy cultures here. Specifically in Spain, of course, it's flamenco. This is a way of nomadic peoples preserving a tradition orally. Romani, our language, is not written, never has been written. Just now dictionaries are being compiled of it. But our music is something that does not have to be written down. It expresses all of our frustrations. It's extremely important. The single most important and obvious factor that holds all gypsies together, not only in Spain, but I think all over.
Other gypsies are working to spread an understanding of their culture throughout society. Pepe Heredia Maya is unique. He broke away from the life of the gypsy ghettos and is now a professor of the language of flamenco, lecturing at Granada University to classes of non-gypsies.
Como vehículo de expresión de multitud de sentimientos. Para mí, que el cante flamenco.
For me, flamenco songs give the most detailed description of the day-to-day lives of the Andalusia gypsy people. Many think that these songs are only about politics, but in fact, they express every sort of emotion, from love to the most seemingly trivial things. Flamenco is a chronicle of the daily lives of the Andalusia gypsies.
Pepe made a film called Let Us Be Heard. It's the first attempt by a gypsy to tell his people's history.
Que a un pueblo no se le mata con una disposición.
Lorca, repito, en una...
The great poet García Lorca said that flamenco music originally belonged to just a few Andalucía gypsy families from the south of Spain. The very last remaining link with that great tradition of flamenco is an old lady who could truly be called the matriarch of old-style flamenco. Her name is La Perata.
Ay, que yo dinerito no tengo, niño, para entretenerte. Ay, no me llores pa' juguete. Ay, tú no me lloras a mí. Y por juguete. Ay, no me llores por juguete. Ay, tú no me llores a mí por juguete. Es que yo hoy te voy a comprar mucho.
The pain expressed in the old flamenco songs is still felt by gypsies today. Just outside Granada, the gypsy township of Virgencica was built as a temporary home for gypsies some 20 years ago, when travelling was forbidden. But the people are still there, and a new generation has grown up which still uses flamenco to describe their feelings of rejection.
Esto es un tema que tiene para nosotros yo creo que es la base principal porque es la que nos hace sobrevivir.
Our music is the very basis of our lives because it allows us to survive. Music makes us feel and forget our sorrows. For us, the rhythms of flamenco are in the bloodstream. They are deep inside us. It's our most precious tradition. Flamenco means everything to us, and I think it's the basis of every gypsy's way of life.
Some local boys have written a modern pop flamenco number about their frustration at being bottled up in the ghetto and branded as gypsies.
Ya no me vas a engañar, porque me engañas con otro y no te quiero ver más. Pero algún día pagará todo el daño que me hiciste con el fuego que me hiciste. No lo quiero ni pensar.
As music is part of the gypsy way of life, so it's travelled with them on migrations and pilgrimages. We followed the Pilgrim's Trail, which brings gypsies not just from Spain, but from all over Western Europe to the great religious festival of Sainte Marie de la Mer in the French Camargue. The service at the Catholic Church of Sainte Marie is symbolic of the gypsies' power to adapt to other people's ways of life. And it's symbolic of the unique, unchanging heart of the gypsy culture itself. Musicians from every country join together to play at the service in honor of a Christian saint. The Madonna they've come to worship is Saint Sarah, the gypsy patron saint of travel. She's known as Sarah the Egyptian because they believe she traveled here from Egypt. In the Romani language, her name's not Sarah the Egyptian, but Sarah the Black One, or Kali. Kali is the name of the Indian goddess of time. In a French church, gypsies of every nationality are worshipping an Egyptian Madonna, whom they call Kali, an Indian name. Kali, the Black Madonna, unites gypsies everywhere with their homeland in India. The original homeland of the gypsies is India. Here, many have given up the traveling life to find wealth or acceptance in the big cities. They found the same poverty and discrimination that have dogged them for centuries and that drove them to find a better life elsewhere on their migrations. Some gypsies only travel as far as the city centres, where they try and make a few rupees by playing their tribal music. Today, as in the past, the authorities view gypsies with distrust and displeasure. Their arts are classed as begging. They're moved on as they have been for centuries, forced to find another place to rest until they're moved on again. From city to city in North India, whole gypsy families scrape a living off the streets. To escape such poverty and discrimination, the gypsies of India migrated in tribes over the past 10 centuries north into Afghanistan. Early this century, their caravans smuggled anything from drugs to guns, as they do today across the deserts of Afghanistan. They followed ancient trade routes, taking their music with them. As their migrations entered Persia and the Middle East, gypsy caravans became a welcome sight at local markets, bringing exotic music and magical tricks from distant lands. At every stop on the Romani Trail, gypsies are classed as outsiders, so they keep to themselves with their own language and customs. Stick dancing and drumming were carried from these markets far into Europe with the gypsy caravans. Their migrations seem to have followed two main routes, one splitting off through the Holy Lands into Egypt and North Africa. The other continued through the Turkish Empire, remaining outsiders but absorbing the local life and religion of the districts they passed through. By the early 12th century, the gypsies had entered Europe. The first arrivals called themselves the Dukes and Lords of Little Egypt. The locals thought they were a lost tribe of Egyptians, and so called them gypsies, a name which has stuck till today. But these nomads of Indian origin frightened people with their strange appearance and rough ways. They were never allowed to settle for long, and many moved northwards into the highlands of Macedonia. We followed their trail into Eastern Europe, where some 5 million gypsies now live. In Yugoslavia, on the 6th of May each year, there's a gypsy festival. It starts at dawn. The Greek Orthodox Church in Skopje is where the gypsies begin their week of celebrations, though most families have been Muslim since they arrived here in the 14th century. At a Christian church in a communist country, Muslim gypsies are recalling their Hindu past from India. They're celebrating the festival of the god Indra. The pipes and drum have accompanied their acts of worship since they left North India. This simple ritual, with its purifying use of water, is bridging 1,000 years of travel. After a terrible earthquake, when the station clock stopped in Skopje, much of this capital city of Macedonian Yugoslavia was totally rebuilt. Though it houses the largest gypsy community to be found anywhere in Europe, they don't live with other Yugoslavs in this fine new city. Gypsies are found in the old part of town, where they run many of the family stores. The tinkers of the Kaldaresh tribe have been metal workers since they left India. Nearby are bear trainers of the Urzari tribe. In the suburb of Shuto Orezari, where most gypsies live, the May festival continues with the buying of sheep. It's usual to take the animal for a walk before you eat it. At the home of Emin Ramadan, one of the community leaders, this family festival is accompanied by Indian music. 1,000 sheep are sacrificed this evening to bring the gypsies good luck. Emin Ramadan is a spokesman for the gypsies here, who want to be recognized in Yugoslavia as a national minority of Indian origin. This would give them the same rights and privileges as all other Yugoslav citizens. For that reason, they've rejected the name gypsy in favor of Rom, Rom or Romani being a tribal name of Indian origin. Emin is also choreographer of the state Romani dance troupe. On every street, costume and music recall the Indian past of the Romani people. This gypsy community is quite unlike the rest of Yugoslavian society. They've managed to preserve their own identity and Indian culture, even when it's frowned on by the state, like the public displays of Pelivani wrestling with oil. A different kind of struggle is presented by the local Romani drama troupe. Its director, Juro Yazarevsky, is telling a history of the gypsies of East Europe. Words can be censored, but not grunts. So they grunt and groan their way through a symbolic play about how one oppressive dictator, meaning Hitler, was replaced by another oppressive dictator, played by the man in red.
Our gypsy public loves to watch this kind of theater. It's something very real to them, this retelling of their past with its depiction of their music, their happiness, their hopes and tragedies. They can't remain indifferent to their past, and they love to join in this retelling of their history. The only means they ever have of knowing it is through such drama. So for them, it's the only way of learning their own history.
At home, Juro explains to his children about the family history. He describes how they've always been settled in this one district and how closely knit the community still is. No one marries a non-Romani here. The communist government insisted gypsies give up their traveling ways, so their photos reflect life in this one fixed community. For these people, life's been a mixed blessing since the war.
After the war, Stalin considered the time had come for a clash with Yugoslavia and prepared to use force. But the different minority groups within Yugoslavia were united behind Tito and were determined to retain the independence of their country under Tito's socialist regime. This unity had been symbolized even by the gypsies who had fought alongside the partisans to free Yugoslavia from the Hitler tyranny. Many gypsies had perished in concentration camps, but now in the post-war years, a new chance came to them, as to all other citizens of Yugoslavia, to unify against the new tyranny of Stalin's Russia.
In their modern school, Romani children are instructed in the virtues of the socialist system by their non-gypsy headmaster.
After the war with Germany, all Yugoslavian people got their freedom to build a new socialist Yugoslavia. Among them were the gypsies, who before that had no rights or freedoms in our country.
Во нова социјалистичка Југославија,
Now, in our new socialist Yugoslavia, you gypsies can study, you can go to school, you can educate yourselves, so that tomorrow, when you grow up, you can help build your new socialist country.
But the truth about Romani life we found less reassuring. After the war, most gypsies grew up without education and with enormous popular prejudice against them and the areas they inhabited. Many still exist in the kind of squalor the authorities don't want publicized. Deprivation and unemployment remain very high. Earlier this century, East Europe's gypsies were mostly nomads. To make a living, they told fortunes and played music. Their tribal life had changed little since they'd left India, generations before. But in East Europe after the war, these nomads were seen as a threat to socialism. Gypsies were compelled to move on or settle down to fixed housing in selected areas. Some stayed, others went. They followed the Romani Trail that had led their ancestors across East Europe, from Yugoslavia through Romania and into Hungary. Sometimes this social integration has succeeded, though at a cost. In Budapest, the capital of Hungary, Europe's best-known gypsies can be found as professional entertainers in expensive restaurants. They're the most integrated of all Hungary's 500,000 gypsies. Is Hungary's most famous professional, who works the hours fixed by his local union. Gypsies have a public and private side to their music, and this is gypsy music at its most public. In fact, it's Hungarian folk tunes, carefully tailored to meet the demands of its non-gypsy audience. Over the years, professional restaurant performers gave up the gypsy life and language to become acceptable Hungarian citizens. In the state-controlled Raiko School of Music, children are still trained to become restaurant performers. Their gypsy teacher explains the tricks of the trade.
figyeljünk! Ezt basszust vegyél. Mondom, hogy ezt basszust vegy, akkor nem menjél máshova. Még egyszer. Tovább, innen. Bátran csinál, tessék! Már mutattam! Úgy, mint az előbb. Érted velem? Ez a tempód, még egyszer. D, D, G, F, E, E, F. Mindenki tudja, hogy jó van, de gyerünk meg mindenki.
Meniat Lakatos is Hungary's leading gypsy teacher and writer.
Usually, it is extremely important for minority groups to preserve their own culture. For the gypsies of Hungary, despite official attempts at integration, their own inner culture remains very strong. And it is due to this strength that these people have been able to remain gypsy through the centuries. At first, people tried to destroy our culture, regarding us as outsiders. But despite popular prejudice, gypsies want to integrate.
At an infant school in Hodas, in Hungarian Transylvania, gypsy children are learning how to speak Hungarian. They're very different from the Budapest children. Their parents are mostly poor and illiterate, and the children still speak Romany at home.
Gyerekek, tetszett a dal? Rézműves Rita, jöjjön ki, énekelje már el ezt a szép új dalt. Próbáljuk meg. Tudod cigányul, mama? Tudod? Na, majd Robi vagy te is. Gyere, segíts neki, Robika, jó? Csak Rita, kezdj előbb, jó? Egy testvérek vagytok, így is, hát jól. Tedd át a kis kezed. Mama, drágo, mama.
Their teachers are gypsy too. Parents who collect their children from the nursery are actually paid small sums by the Hungarian government to encourage them to send their children to school.
Andrejám, jöttek érted? Menjél, légy szíves. Kérd el az uzsonnát. Tibikém, jöttek érted? Menjél, itt van apuka. Kérd el az uzsonnát, és mehetsz haza.
The youngest son of the Rostas family is collected by his father Tibor and grandfather Ferenc before going to church. Wherever they've settled, gypsies have absorbed other people's customs. So when we found these people visiting a Catholic church in a communist country, we weren't totally surprised. But what makes it unique is that the entire service is in the Romani language for the gypsies. It's the only such church in the world. The gypsies use this service to recall in their own minds a faith and history far removed from the Catholic ritual. The Hungarian priest is a sort of missionary in his own country. This Sunday, the Rostas family is going to celebrate the birthday of Ferenc, head of the clan. At home, they're preparing the birthday meal. Inside the Rostas home, we found the original gypsy music of Central Europe. It's nothing like what you hear in a city restaurant. This is gypsy music at its most private. Most gypsy families, like the Rostas, can't afford meat with their meals. But for this special occasion, the whole clan has clubbed together to buy some chicken. No birthday celebration is complete without original gypsy dancing. The art of stick dancing came with the gypsies from Asia centuries ago. It's died out almost everywhere, but the Rostas family have preserved it as a link with their past. Idyllic as this life appears, we found the reality rather different. To find any kind of work, gypsies have to travel every weekend on a special black train. That's a train for gypsies only. There's no work for them at home in the village, and so they're forced to take the black train to Budapest. It's a 7-hour ride every week to look for work.
We are often called the guest workers of Hungary, having to travel every weekend from the countryside into the city and then back again the next weekend. My family would love me to work in the village at home, but I have to go to Budapest as there's no work to be found here and I can't keep my family. So I travel to the capital to earn money. I first came to Budapest 10 years ago, and it was hard leaving my family behind. But I got used to it after a while. Workers, like gypsies who aren't educated, do manual labor, earning 4 or 5 pounds a week if they're lucky.
As gypsies earn so little, they have to live in hostels, which belong to the very building companies they work for. In the evenings, they hold their own private parties. Gypsies like Tibor Rostas are disliked by most Hungarians, who look on them as undesirables, even though these gypsies build the very houses most Hungarians live in, as well as their own hostels. At the hostel parties, gypsy friends get a chance to display their amateur talents.
The gypsies are probably the only people left in Europe with a folklore that is still living and growing today. This means that their songs, dances and traditions aren't just for some sort of stage presentation, but are the means of describing their everyday lives. Let me give you an example. The husband of an old gypsy woman had been sent to prison, but just a few days before his release, the old lady suddenly burst into rhyme like this: God give me that day and liberate the poor prisoner, liberate the prisoner from captivity, and myself from sadness. The only travelling left to Hungarian gypsies is as guest workers in their own country. But it's as migrant workers that most gypsies travel today into the industrial centres of Western Europe. The Romani Trail now leads to where money can be made, like the giant industries in Düsseldorf, West Germany, which gypsies live beneath and beside.
We came to Germany because there was no work for us at home. It was because we couldn't get enough education in our home countries that we had to leave to find work. So gypsies come from Turkey and Greece and Yugoslavia. Because the Germans don't care about your education. They just want people who need work.
Die Differenz ist darüber, dass wir hier...
The difference is that here we lead a better life and have a better chance of owning our own home.
Eigene Wohnung, dass wir...
So we can give our children a better start here in West Germany.
Bessere Lebensbedingungen schaffen können.
There are tens of thousands of gypsy workers in Germany doing semi-skilled or unskilled work that Germans don't want to do. Anything from tram driving to road building. But there's a lot of discrimination. You can't get a job at all if they know you're a gypsy. So the gypsy workers pretend to be Turkish or Albanian or Serbian, anything to stop your boss finding out you're a gypsy. We even pretend to speak other people's languages because if the boss discovers you're a gypsy, you'll be out of a job by the next morning.
Amadov Jelajidin and his wife work together in a Dusseldorf printers. They earn less than a German for the same work, but it's far more than they'd ever get back home in Yugoslavia. The family lives in a two-room garret flat because they're saving.
We came to work here because it is not easy to find a job in Yugoslavia. We came to work and earn money.
We have problems with the children. When they go to school here, they must learn German as well as Yugoslavian. And afterwards, they have to stay alone at home for hours or spend all day in the kindergarten until we can pick them up when we've finished work. It's very hard on them.
But at least in Germany, we can make a living. By working non-stop from early morning till night, we've saved enough to build a house back home for when we have to leave here. It's the reward for 12 hours work every day by both of us.
This family, like other migrant gypsy workers, brought its music to Germany. They display it in a Dusseldorf town hall. The music of the migrant Yugoslavian gypsies is quite different from what the resident German gypsies play. The German gypsies have learned to give their public what it wants, a sort of jazz called Sinti music. It owes much to Django Reinhardt, who was the first great gypsy jazz musician, and it's played for money. This group is called Swing Gypsy Rose. Its founder changed his name from the gypsy Krona to the Jewish Rosenberg. With a gypsy name, he'd been out of work like many other German gypsies. But with his new Jewish name, everybody wanted to employ him. When it comes to gypsies, he's found the German conscience to be very selective. Most German gypsies choose to live outside the cities, more secure in their own company. 500,000 gypsies were exterminated in the Second World War in German concentration camps. Rosenberg, with his Polish gypsy friend Rudko, plays here a very different kind of private music. From some survivors of Auschwitz, he learned a song the gypsies sang in the camps. He sings it in the original Romany words, as a reminder to his own and other people of the the past. Rudko and Rosenberg believe they can fight, with their music, the discrimination German gypsies still face.
I'm not allowed to work here for myself. I have a, how they call in Germany, a Fremdenpass. It means that when I want to travel out of Germany, I have to take a visa. I need a visa for this. Everybody likes the gypsy music, but nobody likes the gypsies. And we tried not only to show the music, but to show our life and our problems.
Weil meine Augen dunkel sind und weil mein Haar nicht ist wie deins, verfolgst du mich seit der Geburt jetzt schon, obwohl ich doch so lang wie du hier wohn. Wie lange soll's so weitergehen? Bringen wir den Kreislauf nicht zum Stehen, werden wir am Ende untergehen. Schon in der Schule fängt es an. Als Zigeuner bist du immer schlechter dran. Da giltst du schon von vornherein als ein dummes, faules Schwein. Ein Zigeuner muss so sein. Weil meine Augen dunkel sind und weil mein Haar nicht ist wie deins, verfolgst du mich seit der Geburt jetzt schon, obwohl ich doch so lang wie du hier wohn. Wie lange soll's so weitergehen? Bringen wir den Kreislauf nicht zum Stehen, werden wir am Ende untergehen. Sag, wohin sollen wir denn gehen? Verflucht nochmal, kann uns denn keiner mehr verstehen. Warum sind wir der letzte Dreck? Warum schickt man uns immer weg? Warum sollen wir die Dummen sein?
To try and begin to settle some of the problems that gypsies face in every society, and to try and persuade the German government in particular to pay the same reparations to gypsies as they did to the Jews, a World Gypsy Congress was organized in Germany for gypsies of every nationality. The Congress stressed the unity of language and culture of gypsies everywhere.
Wherever we go, every nation should be our country. We must not think that, well, this is not my country. For a Baha'i, wherever we are, that is my country.
The Congress called for the name Gypsy to be replaced by the word Roma, to recall the Indian birthright of all the Romani peoples, and to give them at last a real historic identity.
Generally speaking, you could say that there has been a steady migration of peoples out of North India, and even Punjabis who arrive in England today are part of that same movement. Well, this may sound, quite a strange thing to say, but for instance, at the first World Romani Congress in London, when the East European Roma came for the first time, every time they saw a Pakistani family, or they said, Roma, like this, automatically they assumed that they were Roma, and in a sense they are,
So Indian dancers display to all the delegates of the World Romani Congress the origins of their music and dance. dancing together, the delegates of some 10 million gypsies around the world symbolize the newly found unity of the Romani people after 1,000 years of wandering.
Piece of tonight's festivities, an estimated 40,000 people are packing the gas lamp quarter, and the party isn't expected to end until about 2 in the morning. We'll take you to the real Mardi Gras celebration in New Orleans, coming up a little later in this newscast.
My goodness.
Whoa, on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Yes, we're scandalized. The San Diego version is much tamer than the New Orleans version.
But for us, it was rocking.
It was rocking, all right. Lots of information. We're overcast at about 3,000 feet.